Hola chicos, Senora Black here, going to review with you the present tense and some of the irregular yo forms, just regular present and a few irregulars that have different yo forms. So first off, let's remember that when you conjugate a verb in the present tense, you have to think about whether the verb is an AR, ER, or IR verb, meaning whether the verb ends with AR, ER, or IR. You also need to think about which person you're going to be talking about when you conjugate the verb. So here's a reminder of the different people, pronouns that you use when you're talking about people. If you're saying I do something, then that's the yo form. You, if you're talking to a friend, someone you know well, it'd be the tu form. He is el, she ella, and it could also be el or ella. And if you're talking to someone formally, you use usted, which is abbreviated like that. Nosotros is we. Vosotros is you guys, but it's mainly only used in Spain. And ellos and ellas are they, depending on if you're talking about a group of guys or girls. And ustedes is you guys throughout most of Latin America. So let's look first at an AR verb, the verb hablar. So if I want to say I speak or I talk, I would use the verb hablar. I would drop off that AR at the end, and then I would add the ending o and say yo hablo. To say you speak, it would be tú hablas, he speaks, él habla, and so on. You use the AR verb endings because hablar is a verb that ends with AR. Correr is an ER verb because it ends with ER. So instead of the red AR verb endings, I would use the ER endings. So most of them are the same, or some of them are very similar, but instead of A's, I get E's. So tú corres with an ES, or ella corre. In our class, we rarely use the vosotros, so you don't have to memorize that one. And vivir is an IR verb. So we drop off the IR and we use the IR endings. These look almost the same as ER endings, except in the nosotros and vosotros there are I's, vivimos and vivís. Okay, so some verbs are irregular only in the yo form. So let's look, for example, at the verb salir, to go or to leave. When you do that verb, it conjugates just like any other IR verb, except in the yo form. The yo form is salgo, with a go at the end. That's why I call this a go verb. This chart is a chart of different verbs that have a go at the end in the yo form. Some of them that have stars next to them have some other different forms too. We'll talk about those when we get into more irregular verbs. Another kind of irregular yo form is verbs that end with zco in the yo form. So an example of that would be the verb conducir, or to drive. So notice in the yo form, conducir changes. It becomes conduzco with a zco at the end. But the other forms of conducir look like any other IR verb. This is a list of verbs that have a zco in the yo form. And another type of irregular yo form verb are verbs that end with her or hir, G-E-R or G-I-R. In the yo form, these verbs get a J-O at the end. So here's an example with the verb proteger, or to protect. So see, in the yo form, we got a J-O. But the other verbs all have the G there and conjugate just like any other ER verb. So these are some of the verbs with irregular yo forms and the regular present tense. Later on, we'll take a look at some of the other irregular verbs in the present tense as well.